So I'd like to welcome esteemed panelists. Welcome, Mr. Tejas. Thanks for finding time and uh, agreeing to discuss on this topic. And we have a panelist, Mr. Joshi, who's joined, and he is unwell. Despite that, he was able to make it. And Mr. Kabir, Shakir, who's the CFO for Tata Communication. So we'll start with sweet things. That's Mondelez. So, you wish to say anything?
No, I think thanks for having us. I work for Mondelez, as he rightly said. So, the topic is risk management in the digital era, right? And I think I always say, as a finance guy, if you don't invest in risk management, whichever business you are, the business is risky.
Great. So we have been talking about future of finance since morning, and the last session was on the infrastructure building. And when we talk about infrastructure in finance, it's these days it's mostly the soft infrastructure, the IT infrastructure. And when you talk about the kind of infrastructure that is into IT, and we spoke about metaverse right now, in this digital era, the biggest concern that comes in is risk management of our data. I would request the people to come and take the seats. Moksha, can you help us out? Please, sir, take a seat. So we're talking about risk management and in the digital era and the strategies for mitigation. So to start with, I would request you to share that how do you identify the digital risks at your levels and your organizations, and what are the kind of frauds that can happen and the data breaches. So I'll start with Mr. Mehta.
Sure, thanks. So I think, this is, very much a live topic for a lot of the companies, and sure my colleagues here have the same view. I'll share a little bit of perspective from a Mondelez point of view, right? And I think there is no perfect answer in our humble opinion. I think you need to think of risk, and very simply put, what is risk? Risk is a chance of something going wrong, and hence first you need to really figure what could go wrong. Now we are talking in the realm of digital risk. So what could go wrong in digital risk? And I think you said about
Absolutely.
frauds, data breaches, and we know a lot of them, right? So what we do in Mondelez is we have got a three-pronged approach to think about this. First is technology, second is process, and third is what we call people, culture, practice, and whatever you could call about it. And there are multiple things you would have heard in technology, in process, and in culture. But I'll share a little bit of what we can do in what we do in Mondelez is, first is never stay, I would say, constant on what you think the risk could be. So have a regular risk management approach. So the risk is going to change, and your answer to that could change. So the first thing is never think the risk today is the same risk in 2 years' time. So we have a very strong enterprise risk management framework. And I think there is also, I was hearing some of the colleagues before, there is a significant effort required from the company on the enterprise risk management. So I think that is one. Second is clearly on tech process. So, any business process, you need to think of from a digital lens, what could go wrong, what not could go wrong. And I think the most important, at least in our opinion, is the culture of the people and your practices. So simple things like, OTP management, and more complex things like phishing attacks, ransomware attacks. And as a company, we have a lot of drills, right? And we think of security in a building. The only day I don't go to office is when I have the security drill. But I think we try to avoid that happening when you are doing that digital drill. So we have constant phishing emails. Our CEO will send a email with the wrong address saying, oh, make the payment, or a guy will send. So those kind of drills, we have seen a lot of benefit. And I would say the most underlying thing of all of this is constantly think of what could go wrong. You will never have all the answers, but I think there is a lot of people outside today who are willing to help. I think we spoke a little bit in the past of, people spoke about cloud and all of that. So there are a lot of people facing the same issues. So use external discussions and learn from those organizations. So that's something what we do in Mondelez, or the sweet things as you call it.
Yeah. So this actually happens that you get phishing mails for the large corporates as well. And do they end up paying that? So I had put this question to Milind. Milind, you come from a different background. Is it as sweet as him? But
It is as smooth
as
him,
smooth.
because
Okay, as
I'm
smooth
coming
as him.
from the lubricant.
So you can share your experiences with respect to the strategies and identifying the risk and mitigation.
Sure. So, on a positive note, I'll share one of my experience my earlier stint. One of my boss used to tell me, like, whenever I was with the one of the big four. I was associated with one of the big four, and whenever I discuss the balance sheet and I tells, sir, इसमें बहुत risk है. And he used to tell me, कि Milind, risk चाय पीने में भी होता है, because we have the caffeine, right? So it's a slow poison kind of. And on the contrary, he used to say कि risk तो है, but वो manage भी हो जाता है. How? छोटे से छोटा वो रिगड़ी वाला भी जो होता है या पान के गल्ले वाला होता है, उसको पता होता है कि कितने लोगों ने उससे बाई किया है and how much he is supposed to collect. The only thing is, in his case, the risk, threats, vulnerabilities, all these technical jargons are not documented. And that is what I generally believe, that most of the businesses are managing their risk. The only thing is they have not documented it. The right set of responsibilities are not defined for the particular class of employees. And that is very much important, that first of all we start identifying from the valuable assets, moving forward to all the possibility vulnerabilities which we have even within our organization, be it the IT environment, be it the business processes. And that's how we then perform some of the threat modeling and identify the threats, and then we move to the mitigation actions. But each activity has certain rules, and that's how there we need to segregate the duties. And the most important part in the risk management is not to manage the risk, but rather to document the risk, that this is the roles and responsibilities of the person. If that is not done and that is not communicated, then I think the whole whatsoever exercise, be it the ERM or be it the FRM, whatsoever you do, that will go and that will be failed.
Thank you. Thank you, Milind. So we'll come to Mr. Shakir now. And what I assume at Tata Communication, you are managing large chunks of data, and starting from smaller segments and larger ones. So how do you take care of that, and what are the kind of risks that you have, the challenges that you have on a regular basis?
Yeah, thanks for that. Let me start off with just a brief intro of Tata Communications. And whenever I meet people outside, I have this flippant line to introduce myself. You use Tata Communications, you just don't know. And I say this for all of you here in the room. And why do I say that? Because 1/3 of internet traffic of the world goes through my network.
Wow.
So therefore, if you have probably made a WhatsApp call this morning, or sent an email, or exchanged, any form of communication with either a professional or a personal, colleague, then 1 in 3 chances you probably have gone through my network.
No.
With that also comes the responsibility that I can actually, today detect what these risks are. Let me step aside, because there's a lot of finance colleagues here in the room. 20 years ago, we defined security in a physical context of my office. You put a 3-lever Godrej padlock, you put a security guard, and you slept, at your home, saying that your infrastructure is secure. Then we connected, our offices, our factories, our, invoicing locations, our distributors, our vendors, and became an extended supply chain. COVID has taught us, it broke every myth, because all of us, we worked 5% of the employees worked 5% of the time from home. 100% of the employees, for 100% of the time, for a prolonged period of 18 to 24 months, worked from home, and nothing changed. Nothing changed. Yeah, we are social human beings, so our social contact, our entertainment, and all of those aspects got compromised. But from an economic productivity point of view of organizations, nothing changed. In fact, a lot of organizations started reaping benefits, in the pandemic, as a result of this. Coming to the security angle with that introduction, the security perimeter of the organization is only expanding. So 20 years ago, when it was contained in your physical premises, today a leaky chip of your third-party transporter carrying goods from one location to another location could be the conduit of someone hacking into your infrastructure and, posing a risk. So what I leave you with, irrespective of whatever business you are in, whether you are a B2B or a B2C, what we are doing is we are in the business of trust. A brand that you actually sell has a promise. Earlier, in the physical medium, you walked up to a supermarket, you picked up something, you paid in cash or in credit card, and walked away. Today, thanks to the digital medium, they have your entire history. And we talk about data privacy. People, for a chance for a lucky draw in a supermarket mall, will probably give their entire, astrological history with their name, date of birth, everything. That's data privacy for you, here in India. And as businesses who have consumers or customers, whether it is corporates, in case of Tata Communication, it's corporates, they lend their digital estate to us to manage, and some of you who are in the consumer space here, your consumers lend their, personal information to you. And it therefore becomes incumbent on us to recognize this growing security perimeter and the increased trust that is imposed on us. Combination of these two puts an enormous amount of responsibility. And I would call upon, in fact, I would say every leader, security is not the responsibility of a CISO, security is not the responsibility of a CFO. In fact, every employee of the company needs to manage, the security because it's the trust imposed on the company. But I would say, as the custodian of trust, of compliance, the first port of call actually sits with the CFO. So identifying these threats, knowing, that the security perimeter constantly is changing, because if I hire a millennial today, most of the time I sit in an interview, I don't know who's interviewing whom. And they are looking at an agile working environment. They're looking at, I don't want your stupid, laptop where the hourglass moves all over the place, and because you have a procurement policy to buy the cheapest one, I'm going to buy my own device. Can I just have access to corporate net? I am not interested in 9 to 5. I would like to access the information at 7 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock in the night. I want information anywhere, anytime, anyhow. I want information the moment that is generated. I do not even want anyone to. So the demands of internally of your employees are changing. The demands of the ecosystem are changing. Your customers are changing. They are engaging with you online 24/7. So I would say, if we are, and as Tejas pointed out, if we are not managing, risks on a day-to-day basis, I'll give you an example. The moment, a geopolitical risk stems out, and if India takes a certain stance against the, Israel conflict going on as of now, the first thing that crops in our heads in Tata Communications is, what are the bad actors thinking? What are the kind of phishing attacks? What are the things that will come and hit our... So we have doubled up our resources to protect, our customers as a result of this. So every morning when we wake up, it's automatically become part of our DNA to look at the risks in the world, whether it is changing consumer behaviors or, geopolitical climate and so on and so forth. So yeah, that would be a good introduction to bring you all up to speed. I thought there was a little slumber in the room, so let me wake people up with this.
So with this, we'll do one thing, that we'll talk a little about AI analytics and how in the real life the risk assessments are being done. And how do you predict that? So what I would do is I'd club the two things, which is the collaborative approach within the organizations with CFOs, CIOs and CISOs, and for risk governance, and clubbing it with the AI and real-time analytics. So I would start again with Mr. Mehta.
Well, again, this topic of AI, I don't think I'm equipped to answer, so please bear with me.
So you can talk about the collaboration. I think that's...
Oh, I'll talk about AI as well, but try not to judge me on that. That's all I would say, right? I think there's a lot of opportunity out there clearly, right? And I think I was trying to think in my mind when I was listening to my colleague here. I think the word digital and risk management, I think, is a double-edged coin actually, because honestly, the ability to manage risk today with the data and digital tools we have is actually far better than what it was 20 years ago. So I think with the risk that we are seeing on digital, I think we are forgetting that we were not able, I could not tell today what is already going wrong in my factory today just by looking at the dashboard. I had to wait for the month to close or the quarter to close and see what is happening out there. So I think while we are all worried about the risk, I think what we shouldn't miss is use the opportunity to manage the risk better. And I think in that field, I think what AI has done is phenomenal. So at least in our companies, there are two areas where I can think of where AI is significantly helping. One is in the area of safety at our plant. So we have something called as an ITF, or an integrated digital factory. I think the colleague before talked about digital twin. It's a little bit like that. So while the line is operating, there is a digital twin which is constantly monitoring security risk. And it uses past data and I think artificial intelligence to throw out what could be security risk. So I think this is something that we have seen in the food industry across many places. And I think Talis asked about collaboration across CSOs and CIOs. I think this is far beyond. And I totally agree with my colleague who said risk management is every leader's, every function leader's responsibility. Because honestly, without a CIO and a CFO, it will not move too much forward. But I think without talking to a compliance person or without talking to my health and safety person, I wouldn't also know what are all the potential risks I'm going to face, and hence as a result the financial risk or the business risk that the company can face. So I think to me, this collaboration is well beyond CFOs and CIOs. It's actually the leadership team or the team is below, but it's an enterprise, which is why the word enterprise, I love the word enterprise. It is everybody's responsibility to think of risk and manage risk. Not everybody might have the final execution ability, but I think everybody's responsibility. And hence this collaboration to me is the most crucial element. You might have the best infrastructure, but if you are not collaborated well enough, I don't think that investment will give you the return from a risk management point of view.
Thank you. So with this, we'll move to our next panelist, that's Mr. Joshi. So your quick views on the AI and the integration.
Sure. I'll just add, first of all, on the collaboration part. I'll again go back to the earlier session when someone mentioned that CFO is like a queen, okay, who protects the king as well as who protects to all other, all other players. So CFO is one of the front leader who is basically governing the whole risk management process with the help of the other C-suite professionals and all the CXOs. I'll not speak more about it because already he has covered most of the thing. Coming to AI and analytics, in terms of risk management, already we have seen the predictive analysis, the way in some of the softwares, the IBM has already came up with the risk management software where based on the past data, you will predict the potential risk that is already there. Even you can train, because using the machine languages, you can train even the AI as well, where they will see that, okay, during the last 10 years, how many breakdowns you had in your operations. And accordingly, it will predict that when you need to do the breakdown maintenance or the regular maintenance. So all these things which we used to do the manual mathematics, that is already been taken care. But I always say that AI has a certain limitations. Even if today, if you go and write in the chat GPT 3.5, you will write that, give me the industry outlook for 2024. It will tell you the one simple answer that I won't be able to do it because I have the database till September 21, right? So even AI also need a past, or it need a base, and based on that only it will give you. So basically AI will give you the risk, it will give you the mitigation strategy, but ultimately the decision is, again, it will come to the on the table of either the CFO or maybe the chief risk officer or maybe the respective front functional leaders. So AI will not take the whole job of us. The only thing it will basically expedite the whole process, and it will give the one additional edge. What he rightly said, it will give one additional edge to the entire risk management process. But the decision making will always lies on the table of the respective functional heads.
Right. Thank you, Milind. So Mr. Shakir, your quick views on this.
No, just in collaboration, just a simple word. I mean, any diverse perspective from different vantage point always enriches the conversation. So I'll stop with that. And on AI, let me give you a very interesting, not a rocket science, because this you probably know it. Let me tell you, the threat, is caused by the bad actors. They use AI. So that's probably compelling enough for you to, if you're even, deliberating whether I should or I should not, the simple answer is there is so much of quantitative and qualitative information that is going on in an organization that it becomes humanly impossible for you to synthesize, and get the risks out of it through the normal process. I don't want to throw jargons here, but if you actually, if you know what a 0 day is, and I'll give you a quick 10-second definition. 0 day is nothing but the definition of an undiscovered, vulnerability in a piece of software which the even developer does not know. So the time taken between a 0 day occurrence to the potential, threat activated by a bad actor is reducing, considerably. You see that after every attack, that has come through. There is no way our existing systems and processes can keep pace, with this shortening, time cycle. And therefore, I would urge, I think somebody's in one of the other discussions that I was always asked this question: will AI replace human beings? And I give an answer saying no. Human beings who know AI and use AI will replace human beings who don't use AI, right? So that same thing applies here in risk management as well. Please use that proactively and start embedding that, right now.
Wonderful. So when it's been a most talked about thing that is AI going to replace humans? And I always say, write the technology, why you have to compete with it. So that's one thing.
I'll just share one incident.
Yeah.
Recently, I was in the CA conference, and there was a student as well, CA student was there. So he was asking actually, I took the session on the AI and analytics, and then I asked him that, boss, abhi tera kaam to sara AI kar lega, tu kya karega? And he was like, मैं AI को train करूँगा. This was his answer. That he is coming for the training and he will train to the AI. So the whole scenario, what he has rightly said, all those who will not use AI will replace them.
So we'll come to the last question of this, and we'll have a quick round, rapid fire kind of thing. That how do you communicate the risk to the stakeholders? Because that's a risk, and how do you manage them in case something happens due to the data breach or any cyber threat that you have? So I'll start this way with Mr. Shakir now.
Okay, look, any strategy has this triangle. The triangle of growth, profit, and risk. Quite often we as CFOs spend enormous time on the growth and profit axis. Probably a lot more on the profit and little less on the growth. We are probably guided by our sales and marketing colleagues. And very little, on risk, because sometimes the board doesn't even want to listen to it, and there is a risk management committee which actually, looks at that perspective. I would urge all of you to give that equal weightage to growth, profit, and risk, because these three vectors need to be optimized in an organization. And if they are not optimized and they are not balanced, then you can, maximize growth, maximize profit. But by definition, when you pull those two axes, you end up suboptimizing the third axis. So bringing that optimality in the entire thing becomes extremely important. And we are lucky. We are lucky, as Tejas actually mentioned. There was piles and piles of data earlier on that we could not process. Today, we can have the cake and eat it too. We can maximize growth, we can maximize profit, and we can minimize risks and even eliminate risks, because I don't need to do sampling, anymore. I can do 100% testing because I have, enough computing power that can do that for me. I can take the help of AI to find the outliers and eliminate them even before they occur. So bringing this to the forefront and thinking that risk is a very dry topic and I'm going to put people to sleep, then probably you're not doing justice, because when that occurs, And I asked this question. I mean, there was a 15-year-old kid sitting from the comfort of a sofa in Ireland who hacked into the, TalkTalk's database of 3 million customers, and, and it was all available online. So what happens to the reputation of the company? What happens to their valuation, to their stock price, when one such, incident happens? So I would say, please put risk at the core of, of your strategy thinking.
Thank you. Quick remarks, Mr. Mehta.
No, I think I think your question is how do you communicate risks, right? And I think first time in a US multinational and a large corporation. So I think lucky to say that risk is always a topic at the forefront of a lot of senior stakeholders. But I think if you look at kind of deep down, right, I think people are always thinking of risk, and I like the example he mentioned at the start of the tea wala. I'm sure he's thinking his risk as well, maybe not in a SOX form and not in that, ERM. But I think to me, the most effective way to communicate risk is show what happens when you don't manage the risk, right? So if it's an example of growth profit triangle, if you don't manage the risk, what could happen to the growth or the profit? If you're talking about cash, if you're talking about reputation, if you're talking about health and safety. So every vector, if you can switch to say, if you don't manage the risk, this is what could happen. I've always seen people getting awakened, with that. So if I say my brand reputation at risk, everybody in the room has eyes wide open, as opposed to saying, oh, we have to do a brand assessment risk. Nobody wants to look at that. But my brand will not grow. Then, oh, yes, let's start doing from tomorrow. Let's get the marketing campaign 2 days later, but let's finish the brand risk assessment. So I think if you connect to what could go wrong, I think have worked for me as a very simple way to communicate risk. And of course, in multinational global corporations listed, there are enough formal occasions as well. But for everybody to think risk, I have seen this as a very effective tool.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Yeah, Milind, please.
Yeah, so what I said earlier, I'll end that introductory remark. I said in the introductory remark that the most important thing in the risk management is the documentation. So documentation is like antivirus. Risk is the virus, documented risk management entire framework, that is the antivirus, but the key is communication. You need to inform each and every employee that what is their role and when to do what job. A simple example, as a part of a data protection, the three objectives, CIA, confidentiality, integrity and availability. For availability, we are taking the backups, but we have taken the daily backup scheduling, but many times in many organizations, it has not been checked whether these backups are taken every day or not. You might be checking it on the weekly basis, monthly basis, or the fortnightly basis, right? But it is not been, and when any catastrophic event happens, and at that point of time, you see that, okay, since last 1 month, the daily backup system has been, that has been discontinued. And just because of the one simple reason that someone has switch off the main server or maybe the mainstream. A very simple thing. So these things needs to be communicated, and employees needs to be trained, and they should be made enable with the trainings and the respective tools which they need. With this, I think we are already time up. So
thank you, Milind. Thanks for the insights, and thank you, Mr. Mehta. Thank you, Mr. Shakir. And we request you to engage with us on BWCFO World. And as we discussed, we are doing a lot of content, and we can do a lot of content together. And thanks once again for sharing your views. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.